All right, so we're in this thematic study. Remember, we've been talking about the best chapter ever, and so we selected this theme, the calling of God. What's the calling of God? We saw this modeled in Acts 13. Then yesterday, we looked at the three individuals in the Old Testament, the theme of God's calling in the life of Abraham, Esther, and Jeremiah. So here's our next question that we're going to ask. Why is our calling critical? The answer to that question is simply this. Our calling is critical because life is difficult. And when life gets difficult, you must understand what God is calling you to do. If you lack clarity and you lack intention and you lack focus, then you spend a lot of your energy in sideways directions that don't yield the kind of impact and results and fruit that God has called you to produce. So everything is driven by a calling. That's why our calling is critical. Now, let me kind of back this up for you. It was critical for Abraham because he had to leave his country and he had to leave his father's home. In other words, God was saying, I want you to leave everything familiar to you to go and do what I'm calling you to do. That's tough. If Abraham is not clear on the call of God on his life, he doesn't leave, friends. He just won't leave. If Esther, it was going to be tough for Esther, because if Esther confronts the king, she could lose her life. If the king doesn't call Esther into his throne room and she, in other words, knocks on the throne room door and enters in, she could lose her life because that's offensive to the king. And yet she was willing to sacrifice her entire life because she was clear on her call. Life was going to be hard for her. Jeremiah, I mean, you read it. God said to Jeremiah, don't make excuses, Jeremiah. You're not too young. Don't say you can't speak. You know why? Because I'm going to put my words in your mouth. God is saying to Jeremiah, I know you have a tough job. You're going to uproot, you're going to destroy, you're going to tear down. He's known as the weeping prophet because his prophetic words, they weren't like happiness and joy. They were like, you know what? People, you're going to go into exile because you've been disobedient to God. And yet, it was his call that allowed him to remain faithful to what God was asking him to do. Remember, your call, my call, it's critical because life gets hard and confusing and chaotic. And if you don't have a singular focus on what God is calling you to do, then you're going to end up spending lots of time, energy, and money chasing other pursuits. I love you. I'm praying for you. And tomorrow, we're going to discover what our first call is all about. I'll see you tomorrow on The Daily Dose.